Okay guys, we are here. This picture is what we're going for. But first, as always, I have to thank all the people who helped get me started in 3D printing. A lot of really great YouTubers here, so please check out their channels. So what I wanted to do today was, instead of showing you how I actually place supports, because if you watch my other video, you're starting to get a good sense, I just wanted to show you what I actually did. So I'm doing a flyby after my supports are on. First thing you guys will notice is something I never ever do. I have the forge here printed flat on the base, or it's going to print flat on the base instead of my normal way of supporting it. I have the bellows, which are, you see a ton of supports on. If you look underneath, it's covered in supports. Now you're not going to see the bottom of that, so that's okay. And plus, you see I used a mix of a lot of light. Now I'm circling my lights on the wooden platform that holds the bellows. Again, you won't see any of those, but there's going to be so little damage on that underside that you'd barely notice anyway. The apprentice here, great sculpt, and it's actually support free. So all I theoretically would need to do is support the feet, but I found a few places where I thought the model could use just a little help to make sure there was no failure. So that tool especially needed one little spot. But again, you see how thin those supports are I used. Look on the gun here, on the gunslinger. All the fingers there had islands, all needed supports actually. This is not a supportless model. So I use my ultra lights there. The hat, you're not going to see the underside of the hat, so I used a heavier support there just to make sure there's no failure. And I actually need to support the bottom of the bullets to make sure they didn't fail. Now, I did something I normally didn't do, almost as a bit of an experiment here. I put a tiny little support dropping from the, I guess that's the hammer on the gun, down to his arm. Normally, I don't let a support touch the model if I can help it. But I thought, let me try a super duper light one there and then see what it looks like afterwards. But I knew I really wanted to make that drop straight down off that hammer or whatever that's called, so that it doesn't have any damage at all. And that I'm going to snip off, not break off like normal. I'm going to actually use my X-Acto knife to cut that off to make sure I don't mess anything up. There was actually an island there at the bottom of the finger by the gun, so I had to do another ultralight support there. And that's about it. The gunslinger didn't need that many supports. The forge, like I said, I'm going supportless on it, and not lifting it up. So I fear it's going to get the elephant's foot, and that's the reason I don't print things directly on the base. But this is kind of an experiment. I haven't printed something directly on the base in months, honestly. So I figured, let me just try it again just to show you guys how it comes out. So you can see as I rotate around, I've got a ton of supports everywhere. Again, I'm the person who supports too much, and showing you my drain holes on the forge. And I won't see that, so I'm not even going to fill those in afterwards. I'm just going to leave holes there. So just giving you the rotating view so you can see everything. So everything looks really nicely supported. I've got a nice mix of my heavies, my mediums, and of course a lot of ultralights. And if you look at some of those ultralights, like on the gunslinger, a lot of people will probably say, oh, those are too thin, they won't even print out. But as you guys know, if you've tested my settings, if your resin settings are correct, they do print out. Although, even I will say, there are times if those light parts are too long, they can still fail even for me. So I always try to minimize that distance in the best way possible without interfering with the model. So that's about it in terms of how it looked beforehand. Now we're going to look at it. I've scraped it off my plate, and you're looking at it sitting in my IPA bath in my $500 ultrasonic. Oh no, wait, that's my $5 pickle container. Sorry. So here's my $5 pickle container. And you can see all my ultralights printed out. Of important note is, look on the gunslinger, one or two of them looks a little wavy. I actually, in my rush to print this out, because I was going on vacation, I actually placed those ultralight supports and committed a cardinal sin I always tell you guys not to do, which is I let some of those bond to the model. And that's why you see that little wave there, because it actually touched the model and then came off. So here it is after it's cleaned up, and where it bonded on my gunslinger, well, you can't see it from this angle, there was very, very, very little adhesion of those super duper light supports, which I was actually just able to scrape off with my X-Acto knife, and you actually can't tell that it happened. But look, here's the cardinal sin. Look at the forge, the bottom of the forge. You see kind of a line towards the bottom there? That's because I printed it straight on the build plate. So because that's over cured there, you see that line. This is why I don't print something like this normally flat on the plate, but I would lift it up and support it, and I'd get a much nicer looking bottom layer there. But you can see the apprentice printed out perfectly. The bellows looks great. The wood that it's on also looks great, and the gunslinger, you can't tell there was ever any supports there. And where I supported that tiny little hammer on the gun, that actually came out really nice also. I did have to, honestly, I put on magnifying glasses because I'm getting old. So I put on magnifying glasses and I took my X-Acto knife and I cut that really, really light support I'd put in there. I just very carefully kind of razored it out and it came out absolutely perfect. Ignore the blacksmith. I threw him in because he goes with the scene. That's actually from an earlier print. So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like for me, kind of from start to finish, and how that when I use those ultralight supports, you can see how nicely everything came out. So I'm hoping these videos are helping you, and when you try this at home, like I said, if your resin settings are correct, it should work really well. Unfortunately or fortunately, my support settings will expose if your resin settings aren't right, because those ultralight supports, as you can see, if your resin settings aren't perfect, basically, those supports probably will just fail. So if my supports aren't working for you for some reason, it might be an indicator of actually another problem, which is your resin settings. So you might want to play around with that and see how your results are. So hopefully this helps you a little bit, gives you some insight. And hopefully, if you like it, subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.